acronym you need to worry about right now is PACE. P-A-C-E. Ever heard of it? It's a planning methodology used for comm systems, but they found it could be applied anywhere. Nursing, engineering, parachute infiltrations, posting bail. So the P is for primary. That's me, riding into town with my bag of money. A is for alternate. That's a deal we apparently never made. C is my contingency. That's the restaurant owner you put out of business this morning. And there it is. Spot on too, like you just ate shit. Anyway, you got me burning through all these letters. And after this conversation, we already on E. You know what that stands for?
Marine Corps Martial Arts Program.
What?
MCMAP. Combat system combines hand-to-hand, close quarters. Oh. I think he's on the Wikipedia page. Teaching jujitsu to the 6th Marine Regiment.
Okay.
It's team building. One mind, any weapon.
Call in any units on patrol.
Yep.
Here come your peeps.
Chief!
You want to honor that deal, or do I got to transition to
Put
E?
some distance between you.
Let's not do that.
On certain levels, I was rocking with it. It has some unbearable tension, which is Saulnier's, like, you know, that's his, like, wheelhouse, is putting you in a discrete scene where you just know something awful could happen, and you're just trying to see how this character is going to find his way through it. And this is competency porn, you know, which is, you know, different from the characters that he's written, you know, previously. The fun of Blue Ruin was seeing this drifter just MacGyver his way to revenge. And the joy of Green Room was watching these punk rockers try and find a way to survive against a bunch of, you know, murderous, ultra-left, you know, backwoods Oregon Nazis. And here, yeah, we have some equally detestable, you know, villains, you know, in these, you know, these police who are the definition of, you know, the petite tyrants. They know what power they have, and they will leverage every bit of it against you for no reason at all, other than they can.
Welcome to Theater and Stream, a film podcast. I am Matt, that is Chuck, and this is episode 52. After a 6-year feature film drought, Jeremy Saulnier is back with Rebel Ridge, part action film, part legal thriller, part critique on small-town policing. While writing the script, Saulnier reportedly asked himself, "Can I make a movie with no murder in it?" And while he succeeded on that front, one has to wonder how much of a self-imposed muzzle the director has put on himself. We'll get to that a little bit later, but we also on deck today, we're going to be mourning the passing of another acting legend. We're going to be talking about all the other stuff we've been watching in the watch list, including a report from Chuck on a horror film that is sort of the horror film du jour at the moment. And finally, we've got the Mentionables. We're going to send you packing with one non-film recommendation from this week. Please do like the video. Please do subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And now before we get started, just a little bit of housekeeping. Apologies for the lack of minisodes on the channel. If you aren't aware of how our channel works, it's basically we record these full podcast episodes every other week, and then in those in-between weeks, we do minisodes. That's sort of the typical release cadence. But we've just fallen a bit behind, but you're going to be getting an extra dose of stuff this coming week following this episode. Well, but I guess before and after this episode.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Chuck, anything you want to say about that before we get started?
Yeah, the production pipeline got a little clogged. My household initially, everyone in my home got sick, like at some point in the last 2 weeks, and myself in the last week. It really put me out of commission.
Yeah.
Oh no. Daniel Tiger got turned off.
Oh no.
No, we don't.
The TV parent has been turned off, so we have to turn the TV parent.
Okay. I'll take it.
But yeah, expect I believe it's gonna be my minisode up first, and then you will probably see this episode on Monday, and then a couple days after that you will get Chuck's minisode. Sort of all, we're gonna try and make good on all of the weeks that we missed in the previous past couple weeks. So look forward to that, audience.
You will have notifications. You will have content. The algorithm will be fed. And and speaking of feeding the algorithm, we have to get in on the mourning that we are all in because we lost one of the greatest actors that we've known in our lifetimes, whose voice has been the backdrop of everything from iconic roles in Star Wars and in Disney animated films and even CNN. I didn't realize that this guy was the oral logo of CNN. I didn't even know that. But James Earl Jones has passed away. We kind of were given a hint that he was on the downward slide of life when it was announced that he had fully digitized himself to the Disney empire so that they could utilize him in perpetuity for whatever nefarious purposes they'd have to reanimate him. But that's this kind of the power of this guy. He was always going to live eternally, but now we're going to be getting, I don't know how consistently, but new content from someone who is dead. And that is still a strange thing to grapple with. But like, what was your relationship like? Is like your parasocial relationship with him, if you had one?
Yeah, I mean he had the quintessential voice in acting, where second only to like Morgan Freeman and like, I don't know, Sam Shepard or something like that. He just had that voice everybody knew, whether it be from the Disney films or Star Wars. But then a lot of times people have been forgetting about his on-screen work too, his actual acting, in person, live action. And the first thing that pops into my mind as a 90s kid is he played like the old man from The Sandlot.
Yep.
The old man who was supposed to be like the old crotchety guy with the dog, and then he ends up just being cool. And so that's what I remember him probably most from. But then also the Jack Ryan movies too. He was in 3 Jack Ryan movies in the 90s, and so he definitely, his on-screen roles were just as good as his voice roles. And yeah, it's going to be weird to see, because we actually technically have already gotten a like AI performance from him, because he did not do Obi-Wan. They did do like they did the AI voice thing for the Obi-Wan show for Darth Vader, and so it wasn't that, I didn't think it was that noticeable, because I was looking for that. I was looking for anything that sounded off, but it sounded pretty. They did a pretty good job, I think. That's one of the few things they did a good job on that show with. But it's gonna be weird. Yeah, it's gonna be, this guy is gonna be like the test bed for this AI like voice thing, because he is like, I think he's probably one of the first actors who, he had enough of like a cognitive awareness, before he did pass away, to sign something, to basically get his bag from Disney. And now, and Darth Vader is one of the most popular characters in pop culture, so he will be used, whether we like it or not. This character is going to be used. And so this is going to be the test bed, because other like AI characters we've gotten are all just like, people who died a long time ago, who, Disney or Sony or Universal or whoever, they went to their estate. They went to some lawyer somewhere and they're like, hey, can we use this for like 10 grand? But this was one of those first cases where the guy did it himself before he died. And so we'll see kind of how this plays out.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like, I don't want that to diminish, like, because that's the other aspect of his career is his stage career. The one guy, he won 2 Tonys, and he has a Broadway theater named after him. For those who never had the opportunity to like see him in person on stage, there's a myriad of clips out there of his theatrical performances, and his performance in Fences in particular is pretty crazy. It's worth seeking out, if you're interested in that kind of thing. And myself personally, everything circles back to fairy tale theater for me, because he was not only the narrator for the Aladdin episode of fairy tale theater, he played 2 different genies. There was the green genie of the ring that you see there, and he played, of course, the genie of the lamp, in it as well. Okay. And I went on a fields trip and watched that episode back again, because that was the first one on the fairy tale theater tape, like of tape number 1 that my mom recorded. So this was the one I watched the most out of any of them. Leonard Nimoy plays the vizier in it, but yeah, he just adds such gravitas to everything he does, obviously. But it's just so funny seeing him with like prosthetic ears on, and like just being so serious while wearing a costume get up like that. Yeah, he elevates everything. It doesn't matter what it is. He just makes it so great. And
he wasn't precious about his roles either. Like he was on one hand a Tony winning actor, Academy Award winning actor, but then on the other hand, he would do his best to lend gravitas to some roles that might have been a little trashier, like a little, especially in like the later half of his career, like in like the starting in like the early 2000s through like the 2010s. He wasn't precious about stuff like that.
No, he did TV. He was on like New Girl or whatever the fuck that was. Like there was I forget what it was, but like he would just do random ass sitcoms just for the fun of it, because hey, everybody loves him, and he likes letting his hair down every once in a while, or at least he did. But yeah, we will miss this guy. The fabric of Hollywood is a little less rich, not having him involved in person, but his impact will live on far beyond all of us, because now he is a part of the Congress, as it were. If you've ever seen that movie with Robin Wright.
No, I haven't, but I've heard of it. I know what you're talking about. Yes, that is most certainly true.
It is about this thing, and it's funny that movie really didn't get a lot of traction at the time, but it's worth considering in light of these events. Moving on to the watch list, the horror movie du jour. Like for like a couple weeks ago, it just seemed like every single movie YouTuber did a review of this. And it just might have been because there wasn't much else worth talking about. But Strange Darling from writer-director J.T. Molnar. It's a movie that I almost compare it. It's not like Memento at all. I just want to be clear. But this just the reversal that it plays on you about like who it puts your sympathies with at the beginning and how it twists your expectations. It has a lot in common with that, but it has more so the non-linear structure of like an early Tarantino movie, like Reservoir Dogs or Pulp Fiction to an extent, because it has all these really stylized, chapter, headings that pop up. They're out of order. So it's letting you know up front that like you're seeing chapter 4 like right away, and then you're circling back to chapter 1, and then you're jumping ahead to 3, and then you see 2, and It's because every single, sequence and set piece that it gives you is playing on your expectations in a very interesting way. Because and another movie it has a lot in common with is Sanctuary. Because like at its core, is this encounter between a young woman and then like a kind of a creepy little man. Not right now. You can do it at the end. We're recording right now.
Yeah, that most definitely describes every Kyle Gallner role ever.
Yeah, and I was going to shout our boy out, because I loved seeing him in this. And he does a really, really good job. Because right off the bat, the first thing you see is this like black and white of like a woman covered in blood just running, like for her life. And there's also like a title card that shows up letting you know that you're seeing a true crime dramatization of a serial killer who operated in in these states at this time. And it leads you to believe from the jump that the serial killer is Gallner. It gives you every reason to believe that. And you eventually see how these two characters first ran into each other and what they had going on. And, and she asks him, it's like, you're not a serial killer, are you? Like, because like that's a question every young woman in America should ask if they're, drinking and doing drugs in a car with a strange man they've just met. It's probably wise to at least put that out there. You don't want to be proven right about that. And the movie gives you every reason to believe that she is in the presence of a serial killer. And I really don't want to spoil it, but I think I'm making it pretty obvious what the reversal here is. And it's got great supporting casts, like who is, I have to pull up the list of everyone who's in this, just because they all did such a good job with so little, the relative
I think I saw Ed Begley Jr. in there.
Ed
He's in
Begley
there, right?
Jr. He and Barbara Hershey play these hippie mountain people. Oh, good Lord. I just want to comment on this. They're just like sitting around having their like morning, ritual after they've smoked pot. And they make the most disgusting breakfast you've ever seen. It literally involves entire sticks of butter being placed in a cast iron skillet before they throw the eggs and bacon and pancakes in. It is like, it made me gag watching them make this breakfast and then assemble it. Go ahead and then eat it. I don't know why I'm so fixated on it, but like they spend so much time with it. Like we're talking like, and not only is it covered in copious amounts of syrup, they take like an entire jar of jelly and put it on top of the pancakes. And then they sit there and they eat it, and they're doing like a competitive puzzle assembling where they give each other points for finding pieces. They take turns finding a piece, and they have time, and they time each other. And then they're interrupted by our, final girl rushing in covered in blood saying that someone's trying to kill her.
Okay.
And then that brings them into it. The
That's really interesting, because I wonder if it was done. I mean, it must have been done on purpose, all the gross food stuff, because if they're, focusing so much on that, they have to know that some people get really, really grossed out by that type of stuff. But yeah, as somebody who hasn't seen this, I did want to comment on one thing, because I've been looking at, because this movie has kind of taken the film review world by storm, and I have been trying to look at like reviews, non-spoiler reviews. I don't want to be spoiled on it, but there is this weird thing that people are like strangely fixated on with this movie that I find that from my view seems very almost innocuous. And it's basically that at the very beginning of the film, there's like a title card that pops up that says shot in 35 millimeter. Like they basically state that from the get-go. And people are fixating on this so much, and it's almost like there's two camps of people who are like from the get-go they hate this movie because of that. They see it as like a pretentious like try hard overture. And then some people are like sort of predisposed to like love the movie because of that, and they're like, oh, this is, an amazing step towards film preservation. I love that they did this. And so I'm just kind of curious because that sort of point has taken on a life of its own. Do you have any thoughts towards the
Yeah.
the shot in 35 millimeter thing?
I think it's utterly pointless to pat yourself on the back for that, knowing that
Yeah.
everyone who sees this is seeing a digital version of it. Like there's
Sure.
like unless you're at some like special theater that gets a print of it, that's not what the masses are gonna be seeing. It's
Mhm.
it's a Chris Nolan thing to do. It's like he gets a lot of credit. Like he and I guess Quentin Tarantino too really are just the biggest proponents of it. So I think it's silly for that particular backslap to ruin the movie for you. I think that's silly, but I also think it's silly to give them more credit than they deserve here, because I don't know. Like Giovanni Ribisi is a producer; he acts in it as well, and he also is the cinematographer. So like kudos to him for I guess going that route, but it does look very good. Like the cinematography is one of its high points, like because its plot and its acting, and the editing and the execution is all like very pitch perfect. This is I have zero gripes to make technically, or in the creative choices they've made, but I think it's funny that that's part of the discourse, and that
Yeah.
it means so much to both sides of it, because I didn't get anything from it, because I knew that's not what I was seeing. I knew I wasn't
Yeah, I mean,
seeing it.
if they would have never put it in there, people probably wouldn't have even noticed, like in the
No.
first place. Like there's nobody that has that good of an eye, I don't think, to scope something like that out. So yeah, it is very strange. That I just wanted to bring that up because I found it a very, very strange point for people to fixate on. It's almost like people were looking for a reason to not like the movie because it has been gaining such traction. I don't know. I find I see a lot of that with especially like the horror film subcultures, where the minute something gets popular, it's not cool anymore. It's just that old hipster adage.
Yeah. Well, see, for me, this is gonna be one of my movies of the year at this point. Like I highly, highly recommend this. But that said, it's a deeply uncomfortable movie. The elements that it shares with Sanctuary is like during the bedroom scenes, during the role playing scenes, the consensual non-consent sexual aspects of the movie, it will probably trigger a lot of people. And if there are things like if you're seeing a woman choked beyond her limits and beyond her her interest is something you don't want to see, then yeah, there are things in this that will definitely make it a non-starter for people. Like if you have certain sensibilities, this is not the movie for you. But that's part of what makes it brilliant, though, is because it is tricking you into thinking a certain way about the power dynamic, and like who is the villain, who is the person in danger, and by the end it really has it goes for the jugular in a very satisfying way, but it has a great ending. One thing that I love about the rural setting that I think it gets perfect is the fact that every single person's carrying, everyone's got a fucking gun, and everyone is really willing to use it. And but it also like there's a moment where they completely like kind of take a shit on, because there's two cops that show up at some point, and one is a young female and one is a grizzled, male veteran. And the male veteran's like, I don't know, something isn't right about this. And better at this point, and you're just seeing this young female cop just like set themselves up for disaster, because she is programmed essentially to see certain facts only a certain way, and to not have skepticism or a sense of her own peril, just because of who she's dealing with. And
Sure.
and the audience knows the inevitable is coming at that point. But the ending, very satisfying. The build up, really satisfying, and just the way it all fit together and kept you on a like on a leash as it led you through everything. It's like kind of like with Sanctuary, you're getting manipulated throughout, and you don't really know what's real until it's too late. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, but I'm looking forward to getting around to watching it. Definitely want to see this one.
Speaking of getting around to watching things, we're just going to do some rapid fire quick hits here. During my, pseudo COVID fugue, I got to watch all of Class of '09, because this is one you had talked about a long time ago. It's on FX, Hulu, it's on streaming. And for those that don't know, the premise is you're following the FBI Academy class of 2009 in 3 different, timelines during their training, maybe like 8 or 10 years or so post-graduation, like in 2023, I guess. So yeah, for '09, 2023, and then like 2030 something in the future. And if you've been paying attention to current events, you should be really freaking scared, because it's like everything that society is building towards as far as algorithmic true crime, with like this is the hard sci-fi, like warning about where it can go and how fucked up our lives could become. Like where the human element is all but removed from law enforcement to the degrees that it matters. We're utterly reliant on a technological system. The bureaucrats are essentially in control, and their trust in the system is such that they can't see how it is manipulating and using them. And I was just completely, captivated by that aspect of it. And yeah, I really enjoyed this. And it's one of those situations where it's like, it's good that this is a limited series, but I wish it wasn't. Like I could go for more exploration. I'd be interested in seeing like what the fallout and like how they, kind of like, recover, from the events of this. Where does society go next? But a very outstanding limited series.
Yeah, I thought so too. I really enjoyed the picture of, the near future, because it wasn't, all the stuff they had was, very interesting, all the tech, but it wasn't like out of the realm of possibility. It was still like the world was still like boringly like mundane, even though they had all this awesome tech. It wasn't like some like leap forward, like something like, I don't know, like Minority Report or something like that. It was just these small little details that made, the technology look more futuristic. And so, yeah, great show. But
the element where it's like you are like the law enforcement keys on you because you're the weird person who drives a car instead of letting it be autonomous. That world is coming. That kind of thing. The use of drones, the augmented eye that Kate Mara's character has. Yeah, all of that worked really, really well. And I almost wish that the whole show was just in that era, because every time they went back in time, I was like, oh, boring.
Yeah. But yeah, speaking of near future, I guess policing, Slow Horses season 4 just started. I've talked about this before, so I don't need to spend a ton of time here, but this show continues to get better and better and better. It's on a very similar trajectory for me as like Interview with a Vampire kind of was. I think that Apple, like AMC, has sort of come to the slow realization that this is their golden goose for now, and so they are going to put this thing into production as fast as they can. And so, and it is a British show first. It premieres in Britain before it comes over here. And so we have finally sort of caught up to the British series as far as the seasons go, because the show's only been around since 2022, and they've been releasing the seasons like 2 per year basically here in America, but now we're basically caught up. And so we're probably only going to get them at a slower clip of once per year now. But yeah, the show it's incredible. It's funny, without being like American style humor, like quippy pop culture referencey way. It's really well written. The mysteries are really good. Gary Oldman is amazing in this show. He's actually I was going to bring this up. We're on the eve of the Emmys right now as we record this. The Emmys are tomorrow night, and Gary Oldman is one of the best actor nominees for this show, and he totally deserves it. And he probably won't win, though. I think that Hiroyuki Sanada is going to probably win that one. But yeah, this show is just incredible. Just it's been on such an upward trajectory. I almost can't believe it. And yeah, we'll see how well it fares tomorrow. I think that just to kind of digress a little bit here, do you have any like predictions as far as like the Emmys go tomorrow? Since we're filming this, we'll probably talk about it, next time we convene. But do you think that it's probably going to be a sweep for Shogun and The Bear, would be my guess. But
yeah, more than likely, I still think The Bear is miscategorized. It is not a comedy. It has never ever been a comedy, and I think it's just having it categorized as such is just a way to get around, how stacked drama can be. Golly,
have you heard this data point about Shogun and how it's already like the most awarded like series of all time, like single series? Did you hear about that?
No shit. But is it a single series? What I mean?
Or single season, I should say.
Really?
So basically, the Emmys, like a lot of award shows, there is a bunch of categories that they don't have time to televise, and so they basically just they do like a daytime like luncheon thing where they basically just announce all of the stuff they don't have time for in the regular broadcast.
Yeah, I'm seeing that right now. John
Shogun
won Best Outstanding Guest Actor. They already have the winner.
And Shogun actually at that sort of, extra categories luncheon thing, Shogun has already won 14 Emmys for things like hairstyling and makeup and cinematography and set design and stuff like that. And so Shogun is already, before the telecast has even happened, it is already the most awarded single season of TV ever with 14. So it's just going to keep stacking them up.
It deserves it. I'm looking at the other drama nominees, and I think it's like I haven't watched Mr. and Mrs. Smith, with Donald Glover. So I don't know if it deserves to be there. Three Body Problem definitely doesn't. It's just it's just that Netflix just lobbied hard for it. But Fallout being up there is hysterical. That is just silly, in my opinion. But
yeah, that's the one like token show they throw in there to get people to get more people to watch, basically. Where they do the same thing with the Oscars now, where they nominate stuff like Barbie, and it's like, we just want your views. This has no chance of actually winning. We just want more eyes on this thing. But yeah, I mean, I honestly think it's gonna, for better or worse, it's gonna be a sweep for Shogun
Yeah.
and the Bear, I think.
See, and
So,
I'm glad for that, because
mm,
in like 20 years ago, or like even like 10 years ago, a show like the morning show would have just been cleaning up for no reason. A show that nobody watched would just be winning just because of all the stars that they had in it. And
mhm.
for once, the artistically credible choices are, winning the day, and I'd be more happy with that. And just one more slight digression away from the Emmys, but just to
Yeah.
like looking at Slow Horses, pretty cheap show, right? To produce, I can't
Oh,
imagine its budget is more than like what, like $50 million, even to produce like
oh
a
yeah.
like a 2-season batch. Like,
Yeah, most certainly. I mean, and it's only in the sort of the vein of British TV, the seasons are only 6 episode seasons. So
mm.
you only have, instead of having 10 or 12 episodes like an American show, it's only six.
And in keeping with that, though, when you look at the catastrophes that are going on in the streaming land between like the Acolyte and Rings of Power, like where like these companies are literally just putting money into a hole and just saying
Hmm.
everything is fine. Like, how many slow horses could they be making? Like 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 are we gonna see a reversal anytime soon away from that kind of thing and back
Hmm.
towards, like empowering smaller, more considered productions like this? Or are we just doomed to just get like we're gonna have one good example of what could be from the old paradigm and approach, and we're just gonna have to just watch this wasteland of just slop just get thrown at us, that costs more than some countries have GDP.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, TV needs to go back to being TV, basically, is what needs to happen. And, we need to get over the things had to change for COVID because, people craved these sort of big budget experiences that they weren't getting from the theater
Mm.
over COVID. And now we've sort of locked ourselves into that mindset. We need to break free from it. TV needs to go back to being TV. We're seeing the exact same thing happening right now in the video game world,
Oh yeah.
where there's a reckoning right now where this year has been the most layoffs in the video game world ever, and it's because every company is just pumping hundreds of millions of dollars into games that nobody wants to play because if you make 5 Fortnite clones live service games, you only need one of them to become popular, to strike gold, and the other, it'll offset the other four that basically bomb. But that's not happening anymore because people have already found their game, their game that they're married to. People have already found their Fortnite or their Call of Duty or their Apex Legends or whatever. And so this exact same thing is happening in the video game world too.
That's been fascinating to watch, and I'll have probably some things to say about that more in the mentionables, and when I get
Mhm.
into the game I'm currently married to. But
Yeah.
I also was able to watch finally the Fall Guy. I got they put an extended cut up on Peacock, and then it includes like this weird like documentary during the credits about
Hmm.
stunt people, and like and what their lives are like, and I guess that's kind of cool. But this movie, this movie was misguided. I don't like you. And speaking, like, they put hundreds of millions of dollars into this movie, and it shows. And on certain levels it's fun. On certain levels it's saying some interesting things about how Hollywood is these days. Like what productions look like and everything that's involved and everything that's at stake. Like oh, like we only have like this one window to do this vehicle rollover on a beach, and we're going to get it hell or by high water. We don't care if we destroy one of the cameras. We're just going to do it. But as I was watching this thing, I just wanted it to end. I wanted it to stop beating around the bush and just, get to laying out what I had already figured out, like what was obvious throughout it. Because the premise, of course, is you have Ryan Gosling playing a stuntman. He was having an affair with like a director of photography played by Emily Blunt. And he has one stunt go incredibly wrong. He hurts his back and he leaves the industry and just abandons her without a word. I don't know why, but he does. And they never quite grapple with his betrayal of her in that way. And he gets a message being like, hey, we need you back. You need to stop being the people who take your car at a restaurant and park it for you, valet. He's doing valet service for some reason. And, the producer that he used to work with is like, hey, come back. We really need you on this movie. Something happened with our current stunt guy and you're the best guy. You used to be the stunt guy for the star of this movie. You've been personally requested by your old flame. And he comes back and he shows up and then he quickly finds out she never requested him. What are you doing here? Is this some kind of sick joke? What game are you trying to play on me right now? I'm a big, strong, Hollywood woman. This is my first movie. I don't need distractions. And then he finds out that he really has been brought in to be a detective because the star of the movie, played by Aaron Taylor Johnson, has gone missing and he needs to find him. And there's he takes weird Australian drugs where he sees a unicorn that talks to him at some point. And there's a zany cast of underworld characters that show up. But there's just a lot of things happening for no reason. And just for the sake of the stunt, just for the sake of the set piece. And they're fun and exciting, but they just keep going and going and going. And it made me wonder what the non-extended cut was like, because there might have been a reason why I was feeling dragged by an hour 45 into it. Because I was just ready for it to be done. And instead they just found every excuse to be like, oh, here's a fake sequence from the movie that they are making that looks like they've actually made it. And I don't know. There's a reason why this movie failed. This is one of the big bombs of the year. And the big question is who is supposed to want to see this? And I don't know who that person is. I guess it could have been me, as a movie fan, but I just didn't care. And I never cared throughout it. And that's a big failing if you're spending that much money on a movie, on an adaptation of a TV show that nobody, under the age of 30 ever saw. I've never seen an episode of The Fall Guy. You had to be alive in the 70s and the 80s, I think, to have seen The Fall Guy and have any sort of attachment to it. So yeah, that's my take on The Fall Guy.
Yeah, I hope to. I guess eventually watch it. It's sitting there on Peacock for me, but do you even is there even an option to watch the non-extended cut, or do you know, or is it just they just threw the extended cut up on there and they're like, you must watch this?
This is the version. Yeah,
wow.
you guys.
My gosh.
Yeah, the theatrical version wasn't for you, so here's the extended cut. Yeah, and that's a problem, because there's obviously the reason why that movie failed in theaters was not due to its runtime. I'll just leave it at that. Now time to transition to the main event today, the return of Jeremy Saulnier, a filmmaker whose career I've been watching with great interest ever since I first saw Blue Ruin, and then, was validated for my interest when Green Room came out. And then he decided to break away from his color-titled convention, and he made a movie called Hold the Dark that I just didn't get, And I think a lot of people didn't get it. And then he had his aborted stint on True Detective that had me excited when I heard he was involved, but he had to walk away from that production after the first 2 episodes. And that's right around the time when that show started teetering. And so he maybe didn't get a fair shot there. So his comeback is this movie called Rebel Ridge, which is a very clinical examination of the very real problem of asset forfeiture in this country as it is implemented by, small town police departments and even, police departments of any level. Like, you should see how much money the city of Chicago makes off of asset forfeiture, just as an example. And if you're on a libertarian soapbox, this movie is your wet dream. Apart from the fact that the hero of this movie does not use guns to kill anybody, which, you could roll your eyes at and say it's just like a weird Batman gimmick. But the question, that's kind of central here, to the quest. It's like it's a Rambo movie where Rambo doesn't want to do more harm than necessary. He just wants to succeed at his goal. And yeah, his goal shifts. The goalposts move as the events play out. He's trying to get his cousin, bail, and he's for some reason only able to afford a bike, even though he's carrying like $40,000 in cash, in his backpack. And he gets clipped by some corrupt cops who then turn it into a traffic stop as a reason to search him and take his money, because it could be used for drugs. They just have to have a smidgen of probable cause. And that's a very real problem. And you see how fucked up and Kafkaesque that reality can be for you. And then the question is, well, why is this like pig fuck nowhere town doing this? And why are they doing it to the scale that they are? And on certain levels, I was rocking with it. It has some unbearable tension, which is Saul Neer's, that's his, wheelhouse, is putting you in a discrete scene where you just know something awful could happen, and you're just trying to see how this character is going to find his way through it. And this is competency porn, which is, different from the characters that he's written, previously. The fun of Blue Ruin was seeing this drifter just MacGyver his way to revenge. And the joy of Green Room was watching these punk rockers try and find a way to survive against a bunch of, murderous ultra left, backwoods Oregon Nazis. And here, yeah, we have some equally detestable, villains, in these, these police who are the definition of, the petite tyrants. They know what power they have, and they will leverage every bit of it against you for no reason at all, other than they can. And seeing them get their comeuppance is definitely a motivator. You're definitely along with the ride, but the ending has some ambiguity to it that actually helped the come down land easier than a cute little denouement would have. The ending of this kind of reminded me of RoboCop to a degree, even though it's silent, but just how abrupt it is. It's like you're at the end of the ride. You don't quite know what's going to come next, but it doesn't matter, because whatever victory that the main character has been chasing towards, he's gotten his version of it. And so what did you think of it?
Yeah, for me, Solner is sort of a less nihilistic S. Craig Zoller, which I'm totally down for. And this is a familiar story. It's very well made. In the end, I do like the first half better than the second. Sort of when his use of like have like strained tense conversations is just so expertly done. The conversations in this movie are the action scenes,
Yeah.
basically. Especially in that first half, and the barbs being traded back and forth. They're just so like cutting, and they're constantly one upping each other. They always use the term pissing contest in the movie, and that's exactly what it is. Um, and his portrayal, you've already sort of shouted out the portrayal of civil asset forfeiture, which is very, very interesting, a very worthwhile topic. But then also, he does a good job of portraying the sort of purposely obtuse structure of like getting caught in like the municipal court system. If you have just like a not even a felony, but if you just have a misdemeanor, it's hard to know what you're supposed to do. It's hard to know, it's hard to know your rights and stuff like that. And his
Yeah.
portrayal of that is also very good. And I will say the second half, it at times there was just stuff I didn't like as much in it, where things get a little too hokey and cheesy,
Yeah.
as far as like, it's like, holy shit, this is just getting way too like actiony, and it's like he would have been shot like 20 minutes ago by now, but it doesn't spoil the movie for me, is what I'll say. And the ending, I really like the ending also. That the ending sort of recovers for me the movie. And so I think this is overall a return to form for Salner, especially after Hold the Dark, which I also, didn't really like all that much. But yeah, I had a lot of fun with this.
Yeah, much more straightforward than Hold the Dark. Hold the Dark was just too out there, and it was hard to say what it was supposed to be about. This is, he's just going right down the middle. He's not farting around, and and that's the thing. Like the on the one hand, it's like I hate to align a filmmaker's art with political ideology, but like this is like every person who's like quote unquote conservative and lives in a small town should probably take a look at this movie and then take a look at the world they live in. I mean, like here in like Minot, we have like 50,000 people. We're not a small town by any means, but we have a good old boys club just like every place else. Our police chief was just put on, on leave so he could be investigated. And everyone's wondering, what's going on here? Like we got a clean house. It's like is BCI involved? And like in a town of a certain size, there just isn't that will. Everyone just wants to keep trucking along, and like in the scene where James Cromwell just kind of explains the scheme. It illustrates that, perfectly, because it's like, yeah, everybody just wants they want lower taxes and they want Christmas lights in December. And they're not going to complain about the way that they get there, because the people who are most going to be targeted and affected are those just passing through, and that's I guess like the irony about small towns. There's always bemoaning, well, no one ever comes and no one ever stays. But it might be because of this. It might be because any car that the cops don't recognize, they pull over, because they're just hopeful that they'll snag something nice along the way. And when you look at the arsenal that police station had, it was absurd. It's like who needs this much firepower and like riot preparedness in a town that has nothing happening in it? Like they have a Western Union and a grocery store. What else do they have going on? They got nothing. And and they can rationalize why they do what they do throughout it, but ultimately, like the tactics of these cops was, I kept on trying to understand it. Especially towards the end, like it was a little confusing why the ending played out the way it did. Especially after they make their escape from the shootout. But the whole
that was weird.
Yeah, because like I was expecting something more to happen. but instead, because like, but then like in the police chatter, the because like who brought the state police into the equation? Was it the Serpico character, like the mole that they had? Is that how that worked out?
I think so. I mean, what I understood from it, it was so oddly like shot and just oddly communicated to the audience. But yeah, basically like he had called the state police and they were basically just driving, as far as they could and as long as they could until waiting for the state police to show up. And then what I understood from the ending was the state police did show up, and then because they were there, all of the corrupt guys couldn't do anything anymore because they knew that they were being watched, and so they just kind of backed off. And that's sort of how I understood it. But I have also heard people like the ending is kind of confusing in that way, because I've also heard the interpretation that the state police never even actually were there, and that basically the corrupt cops were the ones who ended up escorting them to the hospital, because all the corrupt cops needed to sort of do the right thing was the elimination of Don Johnson from the equation. And so he gets basically a pit maneuver on his car and he's stranded at the side of the road. And then that was sort of the push that the other corrupt cops needed to sort of do the right thing. And so I've heard that interpretation too. It's sort of confusing in that regard. But so yeah, that was the part that I sort of didn't like. But I did once it got to the very, very end, I did really like that, as far as him, going back to the car and ripping the DVR out and then just sitting on the bench and sort of catching his breath. And I that is all you need, I think, because I fully expected, I was waiting for that scene to cut and then for another scene to start where we just have some like unnecessarily tidy like epilogue where Terry and Summer are like getting snow cones like they did earlier
with
in the movie.
With her daughter, like life is good now.
Yeah, life is good. And, remember when we did this, that was pretty crazy, wasn't it? And, I'm so glad that it sort of ended when it did, because it was like, that's all you need. We can assume what happens after it cuts to black. And so, yeah, I really did like the very, very end.
And in the doc, you had kind of, pointed out that it gets a little Jack Reachery. Because he's this guy showing up in a small town with corrupt cops, and here he's a badass, trained, ex-soldier, who's very capable, but was the CQC aspect of it, like the different approach of he's not well trained in murder, he's well trained in neutralizing threats, like in non-lethal ways. It's like, is that something we've ever seen before?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't think so, because, you had alluded to it earlier, but he does have sort of, it seems like almost this unofficial, like Batman-esque code where he doesn't kill anybody over the course of the entire movie. He just kind of maims them or breaks bones and or uses non-lethal weaponry, which I thought was really cool.
When he raided shotgun.
When he raided the stock room. But yeah, this is something I don't think we've ever really seen before, because he has this ultra specific set of skills, and of course he's going to use it, because I don't know what would happen if he tried to kill someone. I mean, he probably doesn't have those skills, and I really did like it up until like a point. Like the final sort of shootout, that's where it really didn't work for me, as he's running around all of these cars and like taking out, guy after guy after guy, and then somehow he gets back to his original car, back to the Serpico character who's bleeding out. And that was just a little too hokey, but I did enjoy it in sort of the earlier parts of the movie, like that. I think one of the better scenes of the movie is the when nobody knows how dangerous he is, and then like the internet goes out in the
Yeah.
police station, and he's outside having his like mano a mano, confrontation with Don Johnson, and their internet comes back, and they're like, he's on the page of Wikipedia for like CQC or whatever, and then they're like, get away from him, and he just disarms Don Johnson. That was amazing.
What do we make of Johnson's performance? Like, he is excellent in this stage of his career.
Yes.
As
He was awesome.
playing a grizzled dirtbag villain type, and I wanted more and more of him as the movie went along. The other coterie of his like deputies were. They were whatever, but whenever he was on screen, everything was cooking really good.
Yeah, he's so intimidating for a 75-year-old man in a dry fit t-shirt. He's just like the most and constantly, when you first, one of the little details I loved about his character, before he ever even puts chew in his mouth, you see the telltale like little circle in his back pocket. You can see the chew canister in his back pocket, and I was like, yeah, I love that little detail. But he is most certainly, to bring up S. Craig Zoller again, he is channeling his Brawl in Cell Block 99 character like big time. I mean, he's not as nihilistic as that character. He's not as like I'm going to kill you. He's more reasonable than that character was, but he is definitely channeling that character.
Let's see here. And like about the rest of the I guess the casting history behind this, because Aaron Pierre really honestly very understated. And I don't have a lot of experience with him. I haven't seen anything else he's been in. But he does so much just with his eyes in this movie.
Yeah, he's awesome.
When he's in the beginning, when he's just sitting there in the cop car, just as he's seeing the scheme kind of getting deployed on him, and you can just see the wheels turning, and you can see that everything going on in his head. Without him, he doesn't do anything, but he communicates so much with nothing, and it's rare to see that and not have it just feel wooden. And he doesn't emote much, but except when grief and rage are taking him. But after that, he's just a machine. He's kind of a Terminator-esque character as far as that goes, and going after people. Because John Boyega was initially cast, and that would have just been comical.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, so if people don't know, this movie had quite a bit of turmoil with its casting, where Anna Sophia Robb replaced the actress Erin Doherty, and David Denman, the guy from The Office, replaced James Badge Dale, who has a history with Solner, and then Aaron Pierre replaced John Boyega. And it's been reported that, I don't know if you've seen any of this, but Solner has been talking a lot about it on like the press tour for this movie, where like fucking John Boyega just got up and like left the movie like without telling anyone. Like they were filming the movie on location, somewhere in the South, and John Boyega just like left the hotel that they were all staying in and didn't tell anybody, didn't say anything. And then like Solner had to call his agent, and the agent was like basically just like, yeah, Boyega's not doing it. Like, he's not doing the movie anymore. And so, yeah, fuck him. John Boyega is like a known prick in real life, and he totally wouldn't have worked anyways in the movie. He doesn't have the build for it. He doesn't have the just the acting, like the ability to be intimidating without like having a gun in your hand. He doesn't have that, I don't think. And so, yeah, I'm glad it happened.
It all worked out for the best, because this was in production like almost 3 years ago initially, before they had to reset and regroup. And yeah, all the better for it. They wound up with a much better lead and a far more interesting performance and movie when it was all said and done. Because yeah, like having because Boyega kind of big timed him. He's a movie star. He was in Star Wars, right? and and I think the hotel accommodations just must not have been nice enough for him. So good riddance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I did want to also mention the script, which I think it was overall very hit or miss. The one of the big like problems I had, or probably my biggest problem with the movie, is probably that like burning down the courthouse scene, where that's where things get a little too cartoony for me, where I'm like, okay,
far.
these cops, these corrupt cops are starting to kind of step over into the territory of like cartoon villains a bit. Like they would never get away with this in real life. And but there are certain moments in there too where, you know, the script is a little hokey. Like I think the one moment, if I could take one like 5-second moment from this film and just completely excise it from the movie to make it a better movie, I would take away that part where Anna Sophia Robb dumps the coconut water onto the fire and she's just like, coconut water, and I'm just like, what was that?
It was so jarring when the coconut water was introduced to begin with, because like he gets shot up and he goes to like a Chinese restaurant where his like grizzled old Korean War vet buddy is there, the guy who's fronting him the cash to bail his cousin out, and he's doing his medic shtick. And she just like shows up. It's like, yeah, I grabbed all these supplies and some coconut water. It's good for you. And it was Chekhov's coconut water because it needed to it needed to be important. And like they could have, and if they had just done without that whole idea, we'll cover up the memory cards in the basement by burning the whole courthouse down. They could have done anything else besides that. It would have been way too obvious that something hinky was going on, because like, but then again, like this town is uninsurable, because of the actions of the police department. But any adjuster or a fire investigator would have been, they would have noticed the use of an accelerant in the burning of this municipal building. Mm-hmm. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, it that whole part was sort of weird, but yeah, I mean, there were parts where I did like the script though. Some of the comedy was good. Like you mentioned his old boss, the Korean War vet who fought for the other side. I like that whole aspect of it where she's like, "Thank you for your service," and they're like, "Oh, he fought for the Chinese." That was really, really good. And but yeah, I mean, it's the one thing I think that if there's anything else you wanted to mention, we could talk about it. But the last thing that I kind of wanted to touch on, because I think we would be remiss if we didn't touch on it, because it's depending on who the person is watching this film, it can either have an incredibly large impact on you or no impact, and that is how race plays into the film, how Terry's race plays into it. And I was listening and I was watching a lot of Saulner's interviews about this movie, and he said he's on the record for saying that racism wasn't a main motivator for his message. It was more about the civil asset forfeiture thing, because all types of people can be affected by something like that. It can be, cops can target, the lowest of the low person or a middle class person. Doesn't really matter when something like that is concerned. But at the same time, the choice was made to cast the actors that he did. Yeah. And there are a couple times where race is mentioned in the film. I think probably most notably when him and the black woman officer are leaving the police station and pretending like she has him handcuffed, and those like the construction workers are basically like, let's string him up, like give him over to us, let's put him from a tree, and and stuff like that. And then she basically tells them off, and then he says something to the effect of like, thanks for doing that for me, and she's like, I didn't do it for you, I did it for me. And I think that's probably the biggest thing. But yeah, how do you think race plays into the movie?
It's definitely there, and but it's not the focal point, and and that's the thing. It's appropriate and it's subtle. It's a factor. Like it can't be denied just because of the setting and the racial makeup of all the other characters. But it balances it. And yeah, like the larger point is this affects everyone. The hero of our story just happens to be a black man. And in that scene where he's trying to get help with his cousin's crime, and it's just kind of like, oh, is it drugs? Well, yeah, it was drugs. It was just marijuana, but he doesn't deal. Like that's a common tale for people of all skin colors. It's like everybody loves weed, and everybody in a non-legal state pays the price for their love of it. And that's the thing. Like from covering municipal and like district level court, the threshold between somebody getting just a common, like drug possession charge in a distribution one, it doesn't take much. And you'll often see people who have been charged with distribution, when their final disposition rolls around, it has been downgraded just to possession. It has been reduced to a misdemeanor, but this person has still been in jail for at least like 60 to 90 days, if not longer, while their case plays out. And they go from, facing a felony to, having to, just be on probation for a few, years, or whatever the outcome may be, but they still get stung with it one way or another. And the reality that like a black man's been arrested, it must be for drugs. That rang true. And then I guess the racial element rings true, but it doesn't overpower like it doesn't get dissonant with everything else going on. Like it's there, it hits that note, and then it moves on. And a lesser movie would have made it all about race. And
for sure.
And I'm so glad that it didn't do that.
I was thinking about that, as we were watching, before I sort of had any confidence in the movie. Towards the very beginning, I was just waiting for one of the backwoods redneck officers to, say something to the effect like, we're going to do you like George Floyd or something like that. And I was waiting for that, but I'm glad they didn't stoop to that level.
But like on that note, I've been watching a lot of James Whale Bake Sale on YouTube. He just like takes, like interviews or, just kind of like commentaries from, people like Tarantino or Bill Hader or Bill Burr about movies. And something that Bill Burr brought up, like especially about, like crime movies in the 80s, like 48 Hours or Beverly Hills Cop, just like how like every movie just had to have like some like really like, once R ratings kind of opened up in that era, like N-words were just being thrown around constantly. Just like blatant racism was just such a hallmark of like white cop characters of the time, like that it's jarring to look back on it. And it was interesting how that didn't come up here, even though like from personal experience, like I know what my people are like, you know what I mean? like I don't know, maybe in the South it's likely different, but like in the upper Midwest, they would have no qualms about throwing the N-word around or like making weird comments like that. But that would have pulled me out of the movie all the same, just because that's not what we're here for. I'm not here for a lesson. I'm not here for commentary of that kind, I guess. I'm sure other people maybe would have been more on board and felt more valid, and been more invested had it been in there. But yeah, the times have certainly changed from that era to this.
Yeah, definitely.
But this was done tastefully. as far as the racial element goes.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess final words. Go watch it. It well worth it. It's kind of a shame that it is only a Netflix movie.
I was going to say that too. Yeah.
This is a movie that would have been cool to see in a theater with a larger audience or something. But I guess we'll take what we can get.
Speaking of taking what you can get, like we have more sad, in memoriams things here to do in the mentionables. Why don't you take it away?
Yeah, I had something else for my mentionable this week, but I had to just throw this on here because, of events, I guess. Yeah, John Cassaday, comic book artist, died this week at age 52. Probably best known for Planetary, which I know Chuck loves, and Astonishing X-Men that he did with He Who Shall Not Be Named. But I mean, personally, for me, what I really sort of jibed with him on was the first run, right after Disney had bought the Star Wars IP from George Lucas. Mm-hmm. They did a first run of Star Wars comics in late 2015, just titled Star Wars, and they were so good, and they were so he did the art for the first 6 issues, which at that time was awesome because he wasn't really doing interiors all that often anymore. He was kind of at the point in his career where he could just do covers and live off of that. He didn't really have to do interiors anymore, but he did do the first 6 issues of the Star Wars series. And for me, the first initial Star Wars comics were some of the best Star Wars stuff that has happened when Disney is involved, after Disney took over the IP. And I would encourage anyone to go and check those out, at least the first 6 issues, maybe the first 12 issues, then it kind of levels off. But yeah, I know that you love his work too, so I'll turn it over to you for a sec.
Yeah, I'm emotionally shattered. This guy's art is so important to me, and we could have an endless slideshow of just all of the indelible and just transcendent, art that this guy has done. I haven't read the Star Wars stuff, but I'm probably gonna have to now after looking at a few of it, of these stills. But yeah, Planetary, it's so important to me. Astonishing X-Men is so important to me. They're very formative, as far as my entry points into comics. But it didn't matter what this guy was drawing. No one else kind of had the quality that he had. It was the covers of Planetary alone are I wish I could just have them all blown up and just cover a wall of a home with them, and so I could just look at them forever. It's such good stuff, and we're gonna miss this guy. We're gonna miss him. Yes.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, there is that one.
I'm almost done. I'll be right with you.
I guess probably his most famous work. But there's that one, I don't know what it was originally from. I think maybe the omnibus of Planetary, but that giant ass mural. I put it in our doc.
I thought I had it here in the slideshow.
Yeah, it's just it's kind of this circular. Yeah, right there. Yeah, that's is so incredible.
That's the cover of the final issue.
Oh, the final issue. Okay, okay, yeah, that is amazing. That to me, this is one of those. You've seen? I'm sure you've seen it before because they used to have a poster of it in Paradox. But that Jim Lee,
Batman,
all the villains and then all the heroes standing on rooftops. You know what I'm talking about? They used to have a poster for it. This to me, this is at that level where it's just one of those indelible comic book images that is just gonna live on forever.
And that's the thing about Planetary in general. It was the pitch document, it specifically said, by Warren Ellis was John Cassaday will do the art, he will do the covers. Every cover will be unique, and be like a movie poster. And Laura Dupuy will do the colors. and it's my single favorite comic book thing that I'll ever have. And it's and that's the thing. Like he killed it to such an extent with between Planetary and Astonishing that he just, like you said, just became a cover guy after a while. Because what more did he have to do?
Yeah.
He had proved himself to a degree that that there was nothing else that we needed to get from the man, except maybe living past the age of 52 would have been nice. But it's the synchronicity is kind of interesting there. Not that he is really known for his DC work, necessarily, but that number is just it's like the number 23.
Yeah.
It's everywhere for me, and but yeah, very sad day, and just go out there and read something with his name on it, anything with his name on it. He's a one of one, as they say, and yeah, we'll never see another like him. I'm for my mentionable, I'm gonna give you an update on how my Severdeen Drow Paladin is doing in Baldur's Gate. I've advanced through the Shadow Dark. I just fought Ketheric Thorm at the top of Moonrise Tower, and I'm in the bowels of the Mind Flayer colony currently. And this game just blows my fucking mind. I in this one playthrough, and I'm doing my best to not watch videos of oh, here are the things that you need to be sure to do. Here's things that you miss in Baldur's Gate in Act 1 and Act 2. I am just trying to just play it and just and the dice rolls where they may, what I investigate, or not. I'm just leaving it up to organic, play. And it is such a enjoyable experience. I finally kicked Shadowheart to the curb. Lae'zel is my girl. I had to let her down easy, because when you have that fight with her, you're sex fight. Everyone's just standing around watching. So I cucked Shadowheart. I just couldn't be helped. But it is what it is. But the depth to this game, I can't get past it. It took so long for this thing to come to fruition, and the strategy the YouTuber kind of made the comment, to caution people saying that this is the best game ever. He just makes the point, you just haven't played a really good game in a really long time. He said that a year ago when the game first came out, after he, played through it a few times. And and that's true, to a degree. When you look at where the efforts are going in the industry towards live service garbage like Concord and free player is the other Sony purchased live service game that isn't out yet but is doomed to be their next bomb. They may just can it now, because it's an eat the rich heist based extraction game from one of the producers of Assassin's Creed, one of the original producers of Assassin's Creed. And clearly people aren't interested in this crap. What they are interested in, believe it or not, is robust and rewarding and returnable single player experiences, whether it's this or Elden Ring or any indie title under the sun, that gives you something, there's just, or even just going through the back catalog and playing a game from the 90s. That is more worth your time and money than a live service game that is just going to prey on you and just try and get you to just dump your wallet into it for cosmetic garbage that should be in the game to begin with. And yeah, between I'm 100 hours invested into this game already.
Oh, wow. Jeez.
Yeah, it's I'm
That's That's like what I beat the game at. So that's crazy.
I am taking
Yeah.
my time, you know, and I've had to like redo, like I've lost stuff where like I've played for like an hour and I hadn't saved, and then something happened that I didn't like, so I save scummed back, you know. So like that's inflating it, but like that's just like how much, yeah. Even if I'm just like fiddling around in menus, or just like dinking around and like backtracking a little bit, no time is wasted on this game, and there's a reason why it's it's probably going to be a game I play for the rest of my life, because like that's just how much replayability is built into it.
Yeah, and they just keep updating it too. Like I kind of wish that at this point I would have played it when they had all this. They sort of expanded the endings, from what I understand, especially with what's her name, the red woman with
Karlach.
the heart. Karlach. They really made Karlach's ending a lot better, from what I hear, because people were really unsatisfied with her ending if you chose to romance her. But yeah, I guess I gotta say that I'm so glad you got past, or you're sort of towards the tail end of Act 2 now, and you got to experience the Ketherick stuff, because J.K. Simmons is so awesome in this as Ketherick, and this game is so good that it has like not one, not two, but like three of like the best video game villains ever, that they're just like, we're gonna kill one of them at the end of Act 2 because we have two others that are just as good, with Orin the Red and Gortash, and they're just like, these are going to be the guys who make it to Act 3. And so yeah, I can't wait for you to get to that stuff. And then on top of that, you have Raphael too. Raphael's in there too, as sort of a, you can choose to follow that path as much as you want, but he could, he's also one of the villains. And so yeah, very looking forward to where Act 3 takes you.
However long it takes me. But yeah, but that's the thing. It's like, because I almost feel like I cheated myself by giving 500 hours of my life to Cyberpunk before they fixed it, before they released Phantom Liberty, so I can relate to where you're coming from with that, because the patch 7 is supposed to be the last patch for Baldur's Gate 3, and now they are officially done. They've washed their hands of Wizards of the Coast, for better and worse.
Yeah.
But
let's go Divinity 3, Divinity Original Sin 3. Let's do it.
Let's do it, baby. We need it. We need that CRPG in our life. And we also need, some good libertarian, action movies in our life. So watch Rebel Ridge, and look forward to the pipeline of minisodes that are going to be heading your way. And if you made it to the end here, thank you for watching, and thank you, Matt. Have a good week, everybody.
Yep. See ya.